to take. And also, a lot of people have been writing to us and asking questions about connections between COVID and now dealing with respiratory illnesses and whether human bodies have changed pre and post-COVID, as it were. Joining me now is Dr. Randeep Guleria. He's former director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences and also one of the leading pulmonologists in this country. Thank you very much, Dr. Guleria. First things first, we've all seen the pollution levels in Delhi. The AQI is above 400 in most places, above 500 in some places as well. As citizens of Delhi, and I want to particularly talk about the vulnerable folks, whether they are elderly citizens, whether they are young people who have respiratory conditions, asthmatic, what is it that they can do as individuals to try and better protect themselves, to try and build immunity, to try and ensure that they can sustain themselves through this 2-3 week period that we see every year when Delhi's pollution hits the peak levels?
So I would say there are two things that we can do. One is from our own responsibility as responsible citizens to try and decrease the carbon footprint or the pollution that we are causing. So try and sort of avoid using a lot of vehicular traffic, use public transport if possible, do carpooling and activities like that, walk up to the market rather than taking your own vehicle. So that is one activity that one can do in terms of his or her own contribution to decreasing the levels of pollution. I know it's a small thing, but it may make a big difference if everyone does that. Secondly, to protect yourself, especially the vulnerable population, those who are the elderly, the young children, and those who have chronic conditions like chronic respiratory conditions, chronic heart conditions, I would really say that if the AQI is in the severe range, or if it's anywhere above 200, it's better if you avoid going out, stay indoor. If you do have to go out and because of necessity, then try and do it when the sun is out during the midday, when pollution levels may be a little less, and it would be worthwhile to wear a mask because that may give you some protection. Also, don't exercise outside, because if you're exercising in an environment where pollution levels are high, when your respiratory rate goes up, your breathing becomes more rapid, you will tend to inhale more of the pollutants, and that may cause worsening of your respiratory problems. Those who have underlying respiratory or heart condition, if they have any problem, they should consult their doctor immediately so that their medicines can be modified, increased, so that they don't land up in the emergency subsequently during the next few days.
Doctor, is it also true, and I want to know if you've seen any anecdotal evidence in the patients that you're seeing in OPDs, etc., that since COVID happened and now there is the pollution problem as well, the immunity levels and the response mechanism of the human body is also a little different from what it was pre-COVID. Are you seeing people having to deal with respiratory problems, the intensity of those problems, the length of time it takes to cure those problems are far longer now than it was pre-COVID? Is there any anecdotal sort of evidence that you can share with us from what you're seeing amongst your patients?
So we need to have more data, but there is data during the COVID pandemic, both from Italy, where the initial part of the pandemic went, and now more recently from New York City, which clearly shows that when you have high levels of air pollution, respiratory infections tend to be more severe. And that was in relation to COVID. So they clearly showed that wherever pollution levels were high, people had more severe respiratory infections in the term of viral respiratory infections. And it also means that it takes a longer time to recover. We also know that if you have pollution in the air, we have PM 2.5 and ultrafine particles which remain suspended in the air. The virus can stick to these particles and stay in the air for a longer period in time, causing more infection, and may also lead to a little bit more severe infection.
What we're also seeing, because there are multiple factors at play which are contributing to the pollution, whether it's construction dust, whether it is road dust, vehicular pollution, and of course the stubble burning business. And we need a multi-pronged approach to deal with all of this. But unfortunately, what's happening is the whole thing is just slipping through the cracks, where we're not dealing with any one factor that's contributing to pollution in a wholehearted fashion, in a wholesome fashion, and therefore the problem persists, and it's been persisting for the better part of the last 10 years at least.
I think that's true, and this is a chronic problem. We see it every year, and every year during this time of the year, around Diwali, maybe before or after Diwali, we have these few days or maybe a few weeks where air quality really goes into the very severe range. I remember at one time AQI even was up to 999, and Delhi was really in a very bad shape. Unfortunately, we have not really developed sustainable action plan. And like you said, even if it has to be multi-pronged, it has to be practical, sustainable, and something that is visible, even if it's a small step every year, so that we can say that year by year we are improving the quality of air in our city, even if it's one a single prong or a multi-pronged small step. But we don't see that happening. We usually have a knee-jerk reaction, and then we sort of forget about it once things become a little better. So unless we have a sustainable, practical solution where
Okay.
all stakeholders are brought on board and they are able to really understand the health concern that pollution is causing. You see, this is like a medical emergency. It's causing significant effects, not only acutely, but long-term exposure to such high levels of pollution is causing a significant health hazard to the population in the city.
All right, Dr. Guleria, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for